Did someone say tier list video? No? Well, too bad, because you're getting one anyway, so enjoy. Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day, and today we're going to be rating all of the vocations in Dragon's Dogma 2 from best to worst. So after clocking in 137 hours and maxing out all the vocations in the game, it's time for me to throw in my 2 bobs worth in what I think is the best class inside of Dragon's Dogma 2. And what better way to do this than with a tier list, am I right? Now remember, these are my opinions. Other people's opinions might be different, but don't let my opinions hurt you. I'm just some random idiot on the internet, alright? Alright, let's not muck around. It's time to find out which class is the best inside of Dragon's Dogma 2. We have 10 vocations that we are going to be going through. Do not worry, you will not have to sit here and look at a boring tier list and boring little old me. I will be throwing up gameplay for each class so you guys can have some frame of reference of what exactly I'm talking about. So first up we have the Fighter. Now the Fighter is a sword and shield class. It is actually a really good class. I really do enjoy Fighter. It's quick, it's really defensive, obviously with your shield. You can do perfect deflect, which is very satisfying to get off. Now the overall weapon skills you do get with Fighter are very solid. You do pretty much have a split 50-50 on damaging weapon skills and also defensive weapon skills. I do particularly like using the shield pummel. I think shield pummel is very satisfying to use with Fighter. You can just knock enemies off cliffs. It does big stagger damage. You can hit multiple enemies with it. You're fully shielded while doing it as well, which is also nice. And I think one of the best things about Fighter is when you get monsters knocked down, big monsters knocked down, if you go over to their head and drop a Y or a triangle move, I can't remember the name of the move, but just your core skill, if you do drop it on a monster's head while they are staggered, you will do like a follow-up animation, and it does really big damage. The core skill actually has some of the best damage available to Fighter, I'm pretty sure. I think Fighter is a solid A. I think it's a solid A. I don't think it's S tier. It doesn't have, you know, all the bells and whistles going for it. It does have a lot going for it, but there is definitely some classes that outshine the Fighter, and they're the ones that I'm definitely going to be putting in S tier. But I think Fighter is solid in the A spot. Moving on over to Archer. Now, Archer is one of my favorite classes to play. I've done a few videos on Archer. Now, if you couldn't tell by the name, Archer uses bow and primarily bow. Archer does have a very unique core skill. You get a lot of movement with Archer. You do have some alright damage. I wouldn't say it's the best damage in the game, but you do have some weapon skills that can unload a bit of damage onto the target. And the class is pretty defensive with the core skills. Going back to the unique core skill mechanics that it does have, you can slide dodge with your core skill while running. You have jump shots that you can, when you land on the ground, you will do a roly-poly. All of these will dodge the enemy's moves. And on top of all of that, you have one of the most dopamine-induced moves, I think, in the whole entire game, and that is the jump kick. You can run up to an enemy as an archer, you jump, you kick, and you go flying backwards. You could do a follow-up shot with that. The jump kick itself does do pretty good stagger damage overall, which is really nice. You can obviously build a little bit more into that to give yourself more stagger damage. But overall, the weapon skills for Archer, there's a few that really shine above all other weapon skills, and a lot of weapon skills are just trash. But besides that, I can't really think of too many negatives to Archer. If you're not someone that likes aiming in and using a bow, Archer's not going to be your cup of tea. I completely understand that. But for me, I really liked Archer. Archer just clicked with me. It flowed. As soon as I learned the core skills and got familiar with them, Archer is a really fun class to play. Now, I'm sitting here pondering. I'm not exactly sure what to put Archer. As much as I like Archer, I think I'm going to have to put it in B. As good as it is, as much as I like it, it's very flowy. I love the moveset of it. But I just don't think it has as much damage as Fighter. So it does have its niche, but I think overall, yeah, I think Archer's going in B for me. Next up, we have the Thief, aka the Rogue of Dragon's Dogma 2. This class is so much fun to play, man. This class is so good. They really dialed in on the power fantasy of being a thief. You get bombs, you get concussive nades, you get smoke bomb, You have Skull Splitter. You can mount up on the enemies and just gouge them in the face and do massive damage to them. You have a parry move, cut and kill, I think it is, or whatever it is, but that move's very satisfying if you can manage to get the timing on it. And Thief also has some of the best movement inside of Dragon's Dogma 2. It's up there with the Archer. I think it might even just be a little bit better than Archer. Its mastery skill makes you completely invincible for the whole duration that it's up. You automatically dodge moves. Like, what more do you want with this class? I'm honestly trying to think of some negatives for this class. I can't think of any. I literally cannot think of any negatives that Thief has. It's just a well-rounded class. There's plenty of weapon skills for just about anybody that fits any playstyle. I have to say, like, Thief has got to be S tier. I think it's an absolute no-brainer that Thief deserves to be an S tier. I mean, Skull Splitter is just going to absolutely nuke any monster you come in contact with, so I think Thief deserves to be in the S tier. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Next up we have Mage. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I am not very fond of supporting classes at all. I respect people that do play supporting classes really well in like online multiplayer games. Those people are absolute godsends, but I am just not fond of them, okay? So I'm going to have a little bit of biased opinion here, but I will try and see the light at the end of the tunnel with Mage and also with Trickster. They're not all bad, but man, there's a lot of bad. So Mage, as I said, is basically a support class. You do have some damaging abilities, and they are pretty good for what they are. But the main thing I do not like about Mage, and we'll get to it with Sorcerer as well, is the spell casting in this game is just slow and boring. I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but Mage to me just feels slow and boring, okay? It is nice that you can heal your party, heal your pawns. You can also buff them to give them more movement speed. I think that translates to attack speed as well. I'm not 100% sure. The mastery skill's good. Again, recharges everyone's stamina. This is much better if your pawn has this and it's using it on you instead of you using it for your pawns, because I feel like sometimes your pawns are just fucking idiot and they can't kill a monster to save their life. And then other times, they're all good. They will destroy the monster in 2 seconds for you, but man, it can be rough sometimes watching your pawns do absolutely jack shit. High 11 is arguably my favorite. I do like using the light one because you can keep spamming the attack afterwards. But yeah, you're mainly just healing your pawns, maybe buffing your pawns, maybe dropping an ice affinity, and then you're kind of just sitting there waiting for them to get the job done. But I just don't like Mage. I'm sorry again if that offends everybody. I don't think it's an F tier, because you can actually deal damage. You can actually try and kill the enemies yourself instead of relying on your pawn to do all the work. So I am going to put Mage in C. I think it deserves a C. I don't think it's F. I don't think it's complete trash. It is slow and boring for me though. Like all your cast time on your spells, just having to buff your pawns. So I hate to break it to you, but yeah, Mage is going in C. I'm sorry again if that annoys anybody, but I'm not a Mage enjoyer, okay? Next up, we have Warrior. Yeah, baby, big unga bunga. I'm very fond of Warrior. I think Warrior is a fantastic class, if not the best class in the game. There you go, I'll say it. I really do feel like Warrior is the best class in the game. Now, why is Warrior the best class in the game? Well, Warrior has some of the best knockdown and stagger in the whole entire game, has some really good friggin' damage. It has some of the best defense in the whole entire game. The fact that you can just face tank anything and you're probably gonna be okay. You're probably gonna be alright. You have some of the best knockdown resistance, so if you are taking hits, you're not gonna get planted on your hole and you have to wait 5 years for your pawn to come pick you up. So overall, Warrior is a really, really good vocation. And again, same with the Thief. I just can't think of anything wrong with Warrior. Maybe you might not like it because it is a little slow, it is a little sluggish, but when you get familiar with the core skills, the barge and your default mighty sweep, I think it is, you can get around the battlefield pretty consistently and pretty easily. You can also parry enemies attacks with your charge. I completely forgot about this. When you are charging up any of the Warrior's weapon skills and you unleash it right when the enemy is about to attack you, you will parry that attack, you will take no damage, and you do even more stagger damage to the enemy. And Warrior has to be arguably one of the best solo classes in the game because of how tanky you are. And again, I think it's just an insult to not have Warrior up at S tier. I think Warrior is a little bit better than Thief personally, But yeah, overall Warrior, definitely S tier. All right, up next we have Sorcerer. Now, Sorcerer is actually a really good vocation. I definitely enjoy Sorcerer a hell of a lot more than Mage, but it does still fall into the same negative category that I had with Mage, and that is I do not like how long it takes for you to cast your goddamn spells, all right? Too long. When you're at endgame and your pawns are all leveled up, your pawns are just going to mow any mob before you can even cast a friggin' spell, unless you're using spell hold. But even then, you get one spell that you can use instantly and then you'll recast the spell again. But besides that negative, Sorcerer does have some of the best one-shot capability in the whole entire game. You got Orgle Flare and Meteorite. Need I say more? Both of these spell/weapon skills are gonna instantly delete monsters, especially if you set them up correctly. I suppose actually another negative as well is Sorcerer doesn't really have any movement. You do have Levitate, which is exactly the same as the Mage, which can get over the top of enemies, but it isn't like a movement skill, so to speak. You just kind of like fly in the air and you're even slower than you are if you walk. But you can dodge Minotaur's charges with Levitate, so that's something. You can obviously recharge your stamina with Galvanize and Magic Bolt. Pretty decent. You can charge it up and you get 2 hits for the price of 1, essentially. Now, I don't think Sorcerer can be S tier because it does have some negatives. It does have some drawbacks to the overall vocation itself. But I do think it is very, very fair to put Sorcerer in A tier because of its damage potential. It can one-shot monsters. You literally conjure massive natural disasters. It's fantastic. So I do feel like Sorcerer definitely deserves a spot in the A tier. Next up, we do have Magik Archer. Now, Magik Archer is a pretty good overall class. It's exactly like the regular Archer, except you now shoot magic bolts instead of physical damaging bolts. And you don't have the movement that Archer has at all, which is a bit of a letdown, but it is what it is. Now, one of the best things I love about Magik Archer is the way you shoot the magic bolt. You aim in at the target, you get the little circle, you kind of like aim in on the circle, target lock-on thing, and then you shoot out even more arrows if you let all those lock-ons lock onto the enemy. This is really fun, and it makes Magik Archer a hell of a lot better when you work that out. The biggest negative to Magik Archer is you have no movement, but you have some insane range. You can really lock on from quite far away, so you can just ping enemies at distance without having to worry about them even getting anywhere near you. But if you do find yourself in a situation where there's enemies around you, it does feel awkward to try and move away and then re-shoot and re-lock on to the enemies that are now chasing your ass like a fucking fly on a shit, man. It also has one of the strongest weapon masteries in the game. This skill absolutely destroys monsters faster than a child destroys their Happy Meal. Now, Magik Archer does have some insane damage, but it is held back by its movement and the fact that you always have to aim in to actually be accurate or to actually hit the enemy with this weapon. If you try and just use the core skill, it just shoots randomly. It doesn't really hit the enemy even if you're facing at them. It like spreads, which is super annoying. It really is hard to put this on the list because there are some drawbacks, but it does have some insane damage, like probably some of the best out of all of the vocations. Man, I wanted to put it in B, but I think because of the mastery skill, that is just a fucking insult. So we are going to go A for Magik Archer. Even though the movement sucks, you have absolutely no movement to speak of. The damage definitely, I think, outweighs that negative. So I think Magik Archer does deserve to be an A, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Next up, we have Mystic Spearhand. Now, Mystic Spearhand is another one of those classes that is just so well-rounded, has everything going for it, all the bells and whistles. Now, Mystic Spearhand has got to have arguably some of the flashiest moves in the whole entire game, and they're some of the most rewarding to get down as well. Even though you don't have the big unga bunga moves that just absolutely nuke enemies, you do still have very, very respectable damage as Mystic Spearhand. You also have some fantastic defense as Mystic Spearhand. You have Redoubting Bolt, which freezes the enemies. You have like a couple of weapon skills which kind of parry enemies' moves or can at least get you out of the way. And you also have Mirror Shield. Mirror Shield, arguably one of the best moves that Mystic Spearhand does have available to it. One of the cheesiest moves, that's for sure, but still it is a fantastic defensive move the way that you use this on yourself, and if your pawns nearby will also be shielded, and that's a massive godsend because they just love standing in shit. The mastery skill still does pretty decent damage. Not as good as like, you know, Sorcerer or Magik Archer or anything like that, but if you do it on an enemy that's staggered, you will delete them. After thinking about it, Mystic Spearhand kind of falls into the same category as Warrior and Thief. I can't think of anything bad about Mystic Spearhand at all. So I think it goes without a doubt that Mystic Spearhand is probably going to deserve a spot in the S tier rank. It has very respectable damage, fantastic defense, and it arguably has some of the flashiest and coolest moveset out of all the classes in the whole entire game. So I think Mystic Spearhand definitely does deserve a spot in that S tier. We only got 2 more left. I'm going to try and whiz through this so this video doesn't like drag on for ages. And now we have Trickster. Okay, yeah. And I'm not going to dwell too long on Trickster, alright? Let's just get this out of the way. Trickster is F tier. I do not care what anyone says. Why the hell do you need a class in the game that doesn't do any damage? That's boring. I'm sorry, that's so boring. In a game where you're predominantly fighting monsters, killing monsters, getting loot, why make a class that doesn't do any damage? It's such a snooze fest. There are some cool things you can do with Trickster, I'll admit, but every time getting Trickster to level 10 was painful. I've never fallen asleep more playing a game than when I played Trickster in Dragon's Dogma 2. I did try and learn how to play it. There are some interesting things you can do, but for the most part, it's fucking trash. It is just trash. The only time a class like this works in a game like this is if you can actually play online with other people. It just feels that much more rewarding, and that's really all there is to it. That's really all there is to it. Trickster is easily an F tier. There's just so many things wrong with this class. The main reason being you can't fucking do damage, so it's trash. Now, last but not least, we have Warfarer. Now, Warfarer is a very interesting class. You're basically the jack of all trades, master of none. So you have all the other weapon skills from all the other vocations that you have unlocked at your disposal with Warfarer. So the main people use this is just to have extra drip inside of Dragon's Dogma, because now you're not limited to any armor class. You can wear whatever you want. But the fact that you can only use 3 weapon skills out of the 4, the 4th one kind of has to get reserved for the mastery skill. The mastery skill is how you are going to seamlessly change weapons inside of combat. If you do not have this mastery skill, you have to do it manually. So you have to pause the game, go into equipment, switch weapons around. That's tedious as fuck. So you kind of have to take this mastery skill, so you only get limited to 3 weapon skills now. Kind of put a chokehold a little bit on the diversity that this class could have had. It doesn't have an R bumper button. That could have been the weapon changing, but it is what it is. So you can obviously use every weapon skill with Warfarer, so I'm not going to go over this too much. I think you get the general idea. I do think Warfarer has to be an A though. It does have good diversity. You can set it up however you want. It is just a little restricting having to reserve a slot for that mastery skill. It does kind of suck. I think it does deserve to be an A. You get access to some really good weapon skills, and you can wear whatever you want in the game, so you can just drip out and look fantastic inside of Dragon's Dogma 2. So there you have it. This is what I personally think are the best vocations inside of Dragon's Dogma 2. Warrior, Thief, and Mystic Spearhand take the crown as being the best classes for me personally in the whole entire game. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is this where you would have put the vocations? Would you have done something different? Leave a comment. I'm always curious to hear your guys' thoughts. So that is basically it for the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy. Appreciate all love and support as always, and until next time, stay safe. Peace out.